Hugh Kelly Lewis Dee Wallace. And the director Lewis Teague. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Excellent.
Hi.
Hey!
You alright? Did you hurt yourself?
Is it warm enough
Okay,
in
good.
here?
It's like being locked in a car with a dog inside.
Who are you?
My name is Rob.
Hi, Rob.
I'm going to be the moderator today. I think I've moderated with maybe Dee before once. I do here and sometimes in Baltimore, but I might have once. I'm not sure.
Done me one time before.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm excited.
Was it good for you?
I'm sorry?
Was it good for you?
It was great for me. Look at me, I'm back for seconds. Anyway, guys, seriously, how about a round of applause for these guys? You guys want to kind of just go down the line and give a little bit of how it is to be here today?
It's really, really, really exciting. I haven't seen Lewis or Daniel since the movie ended, so it's been over 30 years. And Dee and I have seen each other here and there over the years, but I've learned a lot about the movie that I had no idea about. I was 5. I mean, so that's been really fun. And it's just nice to hang out. And this is, I popped my cherry when it comes to conventions. This is my first one.
All right.
All right.
I haven't decided if I like it yet.
I popped my cherry too. And I have not seen Lewis or Danny since we shot the movie. I ran into Dee a couple times in LA, but I was somewhat apprehensive about coming here, but I am just so overwhelmed by you guys. I mean, this is very, very cool, and I'm enjoying it. And it's nice to be back home in Jersey. I was born and raised in Elizabeth, so.
I'm Lewis Teague, the director. It's so much fun to be in a room where everybody is glad to see you and likes your film. It's not always that way. I'm here because I heard there was going to be a reunion of the Cujo cast. As they said, I haven't seen Danny and Daniel since we shot the film. I did run into Dee a couple of years ago at a screening of her daughter's film. Extraordinary actress also, following the family footsteps. And this is my first convention, and it's very exciting, like I say, because not only are people fans of our movies, but I've had a chance at the autograph table to meet a lot of people who have some wonderful, interesting insights into the film, who really understand them and get them, and offer or ask really interesting questions. So I'm looking forward to this session.
Yeah.
I popped my cherry a long time ago at conventions. But I'm overwhelmed with the amount of people that are at this convention. I don't think I've ever been in a convention so well run and so well attended. And as far as I'm concerned, the horror fans are the best fans in the world. I love you guys.
So I guess I might run down the line a little bit. Now that you were here and you're kind of seeing, you know, I don't know, like, is it something that you remember and then you just kind of move on with your life? And all of a sudden you come back and you're like, I can't believe that, like, all these years later, people are so, you know, they love so rabid, so rabid for this movie. So what's your impressions about that?
It's very accurate, and we were talking about this yesterday. We did a little reunion interview for the 30th anniversary Blu-ray release, which will come out eventually. I have no idea when. But we were talking about how we just can't believe how, whether you've seen the movie or not, everyone knows who Cujo is or what Cujo is. Even if you haven't seen the movie or too young to know, you still have that frame of reference, and it's really weird to be a part of that frame of reference, that lexicon of American the world, you you know? I mean, yeah, it's super cool.
Well, as I said yesterday in the interview that we all did, that Danny mentioned, I really lucked out because I didn't have the scenes with the dog. And the audience sees the dog through my character's eyes the first time, and it was a huge dog. And Lewis did a beautiful shot of the dog coming over the rise. And it was easy in terms of acting because the darn thing was so big. But it really is a testament to having, I was very lucky at having avoided all of that intense, emotionally very difficult filming situation up at the ranch in that Pinto. Now, I know I went to rescue them with a Jaguar convertible, which made no sense, but then again, I gave my wife a Pinto. But I'm very honored to be here with Lewis and Dee and Danny because it was a very, very difficult shoot. And after the 2-week break that I was given, I came back and they were spent. I mean, they really went through the heck up on that shooting. So it's great to be here with all you guys.
I was lucky in a lot of ways because not only did I inherit a great cast, I inherited the cast because there were 3 directors on the movie. I was number 1 and number 3. I was hired, and then the studio, somebody in the studio did not want me, and they hired somebody else. And then that person was replaced after a few days of shooting, and they brought me back. And I had known throughout that whole time that it was the gods of cinema wanted me to be doing this movie.
The god of D wanted you to be doing this movie too.
I was getting the telepathic messages. But the point is that when I came, I didn't have, I came, I think on a Friday, we started shooting on a Monday.
Oh yeah.
I had to hit the ground running and did not have a lot of time to prepare. Fortunately, I thought a lot about how I was going to do the movie. During that time when I thought I should be doing it, couldn't understand why I wasn't doing it. So I had a lot of general ideas, but I had to get specific. And it was the fact that I was working with a great team that allowed me to really do a lot of thinking on my feet in order to figure out how I would shoot it. A cinematographer named Jan de Bont, a Dutch cinematographer who's got a lot of great credits and has gone on to become a reputable director himself. He and I would devise these complicated shots and somehow we managed to pull them off. But then with the cast here, I didn't have to do very much because they'd already been cast and they're all terrific actors and they were all totally committed to doing their work. So I didn't have to do very much in terms of directing except just sort of gentle guidance in terms, hopefully gentle, in terms of
so gentle and so
in terms of the kind of shots that I was getting, and they did the work. They did the work. 90% of the film value and quality is based on the fact that these 3 actors sitting here, they did the work and they did it so superbly.
Well, I just consider myself to be so blessed that Lewis ended up to be number 3. Peter Medic came in, did not have the same vision at all that I had for the film, and I'm not quite sure he had the same vision that Dan Blatt had because Dan Blatt was very surprised about Peter's vision. So I said, you know, this isn't really the film I signed on for with see-through blouses and all these sexual connotations. Was not what the film was for me. So they had a meeting and decided that, yes, Lewis was probably the better choice, thank God. And I have to say, I've gone on record many times saying this. You know how many kids I've worked with in my career, and none of them were on par with Danny Pintauro. This kid and I, the moment we met and started work, it was like working with my equal all the way. He never needed help getting into any of the emotional stuff, I was such a caretaker and going, okay, now, you know, we're just going to pretend here. And after the scene was over, you know, we were just pretending that was fun. I have to tell this story again. Because I was so worried about when he had to have the seizure. And he said, oh, Dee, don't worry about that. I had one of those when I was younger. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, you want to see? And he went like right into it. And I'm not going to have to worry about this kid. Of course I did. It's why I play mother so well. But every day I got up on that set, I said, thank you, God, that Danny's here, that Lewis took over, and that I get to work with my husband, Kristen.
Yeah, you can open up some questions, absolutely.
I just wanted to know if like, any of you guys had any experience working with Stephen King, if he was like on the set at all, or if he had any meetings before.
He was on the set one of the first days when Peter was there. We got to meet him. Very quiet, didn't say much, and didn't stay around very long.
I talked to him on the phone apparently, but that's I don't know. I was fine.
I guess I would ask Lewis, now was there anything in the script that you guys didn't shoot? Was there anything that, you know, sometimes things kind of change. Was there anything along the way that you just felt was not needed, or anything that you added that you felt would have made the film better?
Good question, because we were adapting a novel and trying to remain as faithful to the work as possible. But the novel had lots of subplots that we had to eliminate, and we even had to even streamline it more while we were shooting. So how long it would take. And we had to wrestle with the ending and exactly how we were going to end the movie. And we didn't really decide on how we were going to do that till it was almost finished shooting.
I did.
Well,
I decided.
In terms of whether Tad would survive or not.
Yeah.
Well, that was
decided.
That was a given. That was a given. When I came on,
that
it
Tad
was
was going to
already
live.
clear that Tad was going to live.
And
That was Stephen King's comment, as a matter of
See,
fact.
and I never knew that. I thought it was all my influence. But Stephen wrote us a letter and called and said, you know, he'd never gotten more hate mail in his life than when he killed the kid at the end of Cujo, and thank God we didn't kill him. So, back to Lewis.
But the other thing, the only other thing I want to mention that we had to change and work on while we were shooting was the supernatural elements that Stephen King had incorporated into the story. In the story, in the book, the dog, Cujo, is actually a reincarnation of a dirty cop from the previous novel that he'd written that has come back to life, and that's where the evil force in this dog came from. We eliminated any reference to that. And also, when I first started shooting, we were going to have Tad actually see something, some kind of monster in the closet. And we toyed around with various ways of doing that. Of course, this is before CGI. And we finally gave it up and decided it wasn't really necessary. So the story went from being a supernatural tale, or a tale with supernatural elements, to a very straightforward, kind of realistic story, but it retained what I thought was the most important element, which is it's a story about fear and how we can confuse real fears with imaginary fears, and if we do that, it can destroy us. And so that became the thread, for me, spine of the film.
Excellent. Anybody questions? Yes, sir.
Kind of a two-part. You're going to ask Danny, but as you said earlier, he was 5, so...
I might know.
You might know.
Maybe.
He remembers Lee's
Whoever
on
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
I have the strangest memories.
One scene when you were in the car and the dog was attacking.
Which one?
How much of that was real fear as opposed to, like, did you get set up during the film?
Yeah, that's by far the #1 question I get, which is most people think that I must have just been utterly traumatized by the experience. And I was totally not. I mean, as she was mentioning, like, I was just having a blast. And the things that I remember are like the weird things that little kids might remember. Like I remember they cut one of the Pintos in half so they could get a camera where the engine was, that for that shot with the keys, you know, when she's turning it. I was so fascinated by the idea that they could cut a car in half. Like that's all. If anything, it was a really beneficial experience for my life. I mean, the growth I made as an actor on the movie, all thanks to Dee, I'd never have any of that to go off of, you know? I mean, she's amazing.
The second part to that was it the same dog for all of you?
I'm not the best one to answer that, but no.
Okay, so I thought there were 5 real dogs, and a guy in a dog suit, and a mechanical dog, and a black lab that tried to wear a dog suit. Lewis yesterday says there's how many dogs?
11.
Wow.
Okay, not main dogs that worked.
We had 11 dogs. Each dog had a different talent. One was able to run.
Shut up, I've been lying to all my fans for years. 11 that were on camera. That went on camera?
They probably all were used at one time or another. Yeah, one of them passed away.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, Dan came to my dressing room because I had done the Howling with Dan Blatt, our producer. And he knew how sensitive I was because I'm a big animal lover. I do a lot of work for the charities. And he came and he said, Dee, I have to talk to you. Well, you know, you're an actor, you know that tone of voice. Shit, we've lost the money, we're not going to finish the film, you know? And he said, I want you to know this wasn't anybody's fault, okay? He's doing this. One of the dogs passed away last night. What happened? It was very traumatic for me. And it wasn't anybody's fault from what I understand, right, Liz? Did he lie to me?
You want the truth?
Oh, shit.
We worked those dogs very hard. We tried to protect them and treat them as humanely as possible.
Let me tell you, they were treated better than I was. I gotta tell you.
Even I remember that. Yeah, even I remember that.
But I do remember, Lewis.
There was one thing. We were putting a concoction on the dog's face to look like lather, to look like they would make them look like they were rabid, and it was sort of vinegar and baking soda and harmless stuff. But the dog, as soon as you put that on the dog's mouth, the dog would try to lick it off.
Oh yeah.
And we don't know for sure, but that could have contributed. That and the stress could have contributed to the dog's problem.
It's also true though, that because I went out, as I said yesterday, I went out with Carl the night that happened, and we got ripped. We were in the hotel bar. Carl was the trainer.
Fabulous trainer.
And he was devastated over this. And if I recall, as I said yesterday, I could be wrong, but I thought the dog's name was Cubby. And dogs of that size, and Cubby was huge. And dogs of that size have an affliction, particularly purebreds, where if they get very excited over a long period of time, their stomachs can turn. And there's a name for it, and I don't know what happened. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened, because I recall, it's been years ago, that's what happened.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Okay, now I feel really bad because I remember the first day or the second day with the dog, and you came back to me and said, Dee, do you think you can do all yours and Danny's coverage without a dog? I said, what? He said, well, can you try to do all your coverage without the dog? And we tried it. Sorry, Lewis, but we tried it with Lewis, and Lewis came up and went, arr, 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 you know. Danny started laughing, I started laughing. Even though we knew the dog was trained to go after toys, when you were in the scene, it was frightening, the sound and the closeness of the, you know, the open mouth and the whole thing. really helped us. And so we decided, no, we probably needed the dogs, and now maybe that contributed to it.
I remember though that a lot of times there was no dog. If you don't see the dog in the shot, I feel like a few times we didn't have a dog. We were just going for it. I seem to remember that a few times, which says a lot about us, I guess.
I'm thinking in my mind there was usually a dog.
Let's go with the other version where we're so talented.
Yeah, we're so talented. We need a dog. Okay.
I'm going to tell
Do you remember? Did we always have a dog?
There were probably shots where we did not have a dog, but if it was important and we needed your reaction,
I mean, the fuck you dog, there was no dog. I can tell you, I did not need a dog for that long. And long shots and stuff, but it was the closeness in the car, the tech stuff in the car, which I guess it really, that was here and there in the film, really, but for us it was...
For me, it was more
everything.
Everybody was so stressed out that the dog was going to get in the car and do something to us that I think for me, some of the heightened fear was that everyone was so worried about that. And I remember it happened once.
Yes,
and
they
pulled us out, like, it was like, just flew us right out of the car. And I started laughing because the dog went after the toy. Like, he didn't care about us at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, he doesn't care.
I'm going to tell a story about Carl Miller because Carl has passed away, and I love the guy. I worked with him again on Cat's Eye, and he did an equally marvelous story on Cat's Eye, and we became good friends. He was struggling all his life, not all his life, but his later life with alcohol, and I think he said he went on a bender the night the dog died.
Yeah.
What I noticed is that when we were shooting, he was trying to stay off the sauce, stay off the booze, by drinking non-alcoholic beer. And I noticed he was drinking a couple of cases of non-alcoholic beer every day. So I did the math. Each can of non-alcoholic beer has 0.6% alcohol. And so he drinks 2 cases, he's getting a couple of 6-packs worth of alcohol in there. But he was controlling it and doing a great job, and then that pushed him over the edge that temporarily when that dog died. He loved the dogs. He was a dog whisperer. He worked with the animals telepathically. And but then after that he got his act together and got off near beer too.
And if you think about the stress that an excellent trainer such as Carl was under, given that these massive dogs were being made to be excited, and they were inches from Dee's face, from a 5-year-old. I mean, the stress of every shot, particularly for Carl, let alone for Lewis, it had to be incredibly intense. And, I hadn't seen Dee in a long time, but I mean, she's as beautiful today as it's like she shot the movie yesterday.
Oh.
Danny, I would not have recognized had I fell over.
We didn't totally have that in the elevator.
We met in the elevator last night. I didn't recognize him.
I totally had no idea who I was.
But that kind of stress is something that I certainly don't often think about. Certainly when you're watching a movie, you don't think about it. But that's a lot of responsibility for a trainer. And that trainer better be good, and he better train those dogs.
And you never knew who was there.
Yeah.
I never knew Carl was there. Somehow he directed those dogs, not within our sight, never involved himself in our performances to get, I don't ever remember him. And I went on to do Lassie, and that trainer was always in your eyesight, always that far from us, always in the scene. Everything had to be around what the dog could do instead of what the performance should have been. So it just really made me appreciate Carl even more.
Apparently Carl went to the producer, Dan Blatt, before they started shooting and begged him to change the dog in the story from a Saint Bernard to a golden retriever or something like that. Because Saint Bernards are not easy to train, and they're not very ferocious looking. But Dan Black said absolutely no way. And so Carl...
He pulled it off, man.
You guys have any stories about, now you know that it's supposed to take place in the heat of the summer.
We were freezing.
Were you really?
Freezing the whole shoot.
Because you're designed to think like, and you did a great job, but it's, so hot. I'm just going to ask if there was ever a time where it was just uncomfortable, but I guess it could have been uncomfortable the opposite way.
It was December, and I spent most of the shoot in shorts. I mean,
raining all the time.
Yeah, I remember when we did the scene in the kitchen, she pours water all over me, and they had to heat it up because it was just frigid, and there was a heater like right under the table too, because the table was freezing cold.
Well, and Lewis got them somehow to cut out the front of the Pinto so that we could put in a little space heater in the car, because I would look over at Danny and it was so cold. And then they had to spritz us down and put glycerin on us and all that. And the poor crew, really, everybody was always under tarps and under umbrellas, freezing out. I mean, whatever the actors have to go through, God bless them, the crew has to go through 50 times more. Come in earlier, stay later, go through hell in order to support us in getting what we needed. So.
Yes.
Listening to all the stories, and I feel like Cujo, the primal fear of animals, let alone the fear of survival, what you're going to do, I feel like that couldn't be made nowadays. It'd be CGI, it'd be...
Well, it could be if you didn't pull out all the tricks.
I was going to say, it sounds like something out of an indie horror film, something nowadays indie horror. Looking at the way the fans appreciate and love and respect that film to this day, and this goes for anyone, talk about the reaction of meeting the fans with this film and how it's had such a lasting effect for how great it was made and how real.
Yeah, all my fans love Cujo, and Cujo's my favorite film of all the films that I've ever been in. It's my favorite. And there's just something visceral that doesn't happen. I mean, any good actor can work with a green screen and do the job, but there's something visceral that happens to you when you're in the moment with that vibration of fear that I don't think, it's like, everybody says someday we're not going to have actors, we're just going to have CGI characters, but you can't put a soul on a screen, and that's the big difference.
Any other questions? Yes.
Any memorable experience with Stephen King during the filming?
Sorry.
Any memorable experience with Stephen King during the filming?
Oh, you may not have been here. I never met him. I talked to him on the phone.
He just wasn't around much, Stephen King.
No.
And he didn't do a cameo, right?
Now, I guess my question might go to then what was his reaction after he saw it?
Well, that's a good question.
He thinks it's the best film of his work that's ever made, and you can go on his website. He is so gracious about the film and says over and over again in his interviews that I should have won the Academy Award for it, or at least an up for it. He absolutely comes out and says it's his favorite work.
I remember there was a version of the script that I read that was purported to be from Stephen, and the powers that be, Lewis and Dan Blatt in the studio, I guess, weren't happy with it. I don't know. I don't remember if I'm right about that, but I thought.
Yeah, he took a pass at the script.
Yeah, I remember reading it.
I think he does in most of his. Maybe it's part of his contract. That he gets a pass at his own script.
I remember seeing him in an interview after when Cujo was coming out, saying that it was his favorite adaptation, and that felt great until his next Stephen King film came out, and he said that was his favorite.
Oh,
And the next. He's a very generous person with praise and support.
Who else should have won
do a remake of this film, and they said, well, we can use a young cast that today's audience can relate to, and we can use CGI to enhance the effects. And I just remember John Ford's line, which was, I don't know why they remake the good films. They should remake near misses. And I thought, I couldn't do any better. You couldn't do any better.
Yeah,
so there's no point in redoing it.
Yes.
I just read on IMDb that Danny bit Dee for real in the seizure scene. I was just wondering if that was
Oh yeah, when you got your finger, when you put your fingers in my mouth, I
actually
bit down.
God, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
reaction was real. I did. I mean, we were so in it. You know, it's the same story with the car window. You know, I mean, she was so in that moment that.
Yes, I was told you can't break this window, Dee.
I was told it wasn't going to break.
And you can't break this window. So we're going to shoot it in slow motion. So you have to really get it hard. Well, welcome to the adrenaline of an actor. So what was it, the third or fourth hit? There it goes, through my arm. So I cut my arm, but I didn't hear cut. You know? So this side of my brain goes, keep going, you didn't hear cut. So Donna gets in and grabs the kid. We had rehearsed it all the way through so that we knew what we were going to do. This side of my brain's going, there's glass there now, you can't drag him like you rehearsed it. And Donna goes, okay, pick him up, you have to get Ted out of the car, you're going to get Ted out of the car. So I picked him up and does a stupid waddle. I get out of the car, still don't hear cut. Okay, we have to get him to the house, have to get him out. So I run all the way up to the house. Finally, I hear cut, right? Dan Blatt runs over to me and says, are you all right? Are you all right? He's looking at my arm. He goes, oh, God, Dee, we better take you to the emergency room. But can we do one more shot? Can we do it one more time? So, yeah, and the big attack scene that we did, the editing on this, please say
Neil Travis.
Just incredibly remarkable editor. The big attack scene has me and the stunt guy and the stunt woman and the real dog all intercut together. Now I have talked Dan into letting me do the attack scene with the dog. But that morning he decided no, it was too dangerous, probably because Carl said, are you freaking kidding me? And so at the last minute we decided to intercut the stunt woman. Now the dog, that dog was trained, every time she lunged forward, the dog was taught to lunge toward her, and she pulled back, and then the dog pulled back. That's how finely tuned these dogs were trained. And they did it in one take, and we hear, cut, we got it, and the stunt woman goes, yeah, and comes forward before somebody has the hand on the dog. And the dog lunged forward and bit off the end of her nose. Now, it was not the dog's fault, you understand. The dog was doing what it was trained to do, was lunge when she came forward. But they picked it up and put it back on. Everything was fine. But that's why a lot of times lead actors, they don't let you do the stunts that you think you can do.
Yes.
In the book, Ted, I case you know, the kid dies at the end, and I was just wondering if you thought about putting that in the movie.
I have no influence on that, but they had a lot of influence on whether or not he died. And I guess you were saying that it was Stephen who partly said that we should not have him die.
In my initial meetings with Dan Blatt, the producer, at the very beginning, he told me.
The first time?
The very first time, he told me that Stephen King had said, but the movie can't end with Ted dying.
That is so weird because he walked up to me the first day or two of shooting and said, what do you think, you know, he dies at the end of the book. I said, you are nuts. You're nuts. In the 80s, to put people through what we're going to put them through for 2 hours and have the kid die with no payoff, I said, you're nuts, you're crazy. So I thought it was all my influence.
Stephen might have been second guessing himself at that point, but Just one more thing about the dog and dying. The human beings audiences are very willing to accept human beings getting slaughtered and maimed on screen, but they won't suspend their disbelief when it's an animal. And I knew that reality would be my enemy when it came to the time that Donna had to get out of the car and kill the dog with a bat. And so I wrestled with how we were gonna, I didn't want the audience to hate her for killing this dog that she was forced to do. So if you look at the film again, or if you ever do, you'll notice that you never see her hit the dog in that sequence. It's all done off screen.
And how many reviewers in their reviews said, I can't believe they actually filmed her hitting that dog, and you never see it. They filled it all in. Go back and watch the film again.
Yes, sir.
My question is mostly for Lewis. All that stuff of Deanna dragging the child out of the car, was that really filmed or not?
So mad at you both.
Which, what's the question? Can you repeat it?
How do you score?
We both just had that.
The whole thing of me pulling the kid out of the car, was that really filmed?
Was it on film?
Was it on film?
Or was it really cut? You did it, or they filmed it.
I don't understand, John.
The filming.
Was it that you just didn't hear them and they had actually stopped filming, or were you?
No, if I understand the question before, when Dee was explaining what happened, she accidentally broke the window. We didn't yell cut, so she continued with the action and pulled the kid out of the car. Well, yeah, we kept running and let her complete all the action with the camera that was still running. And then we covered that action, the aftermath of that, when she's running up to the house with cameras from other angles.
Yeah, I mean, everybody probably was standing going, holy shit, she broke, holy shit.
I was saying, holy shit, I ran away. I mean, the glass was coming at me and I rolled away. Oh my God, it was scary.
Like I said, 5 years old going on 50, I was working with you. Unbelievable.
Yes, ma'am.
My question's a little bit different. It's such a unique opportunity to have the four of you up here together, and I'm always interested in people on a more personal level. So I'm curious to anyone on the panel that wants to answer, what would you say is the single best piece of advice, career-wise or personal, in your personal life?
Dee's definitely the best one for that.
Be yourself. Be who you are. That's really who they want. That's really what you want. You want to see my soul up there on the screen. You don't want to see Dee bullshitting you. Be yourself.
I would say, because Cujo was my first film, I had done a lot of theater in New York and regional repertory all around the country. And done a nighttime series for NBC, but that was pretty much it. And I learned not long after that, I was working for many years with Brian Keith, who I adored. And then over the course of my career, that's what would happen with everyone up here. You work with people who maybe not, might not be as dedicated as you seem to believe you are, who may be in it for the wrong reasons, to be a celebrity or something. I find them to be very difficult.
You know, Kim Kardashian.
I find that to be very, very difficult and frustrating to work with. And that, I was very gifted in the sense that being my first film, I was with these people up here at this podium. But yeah, that's what I would advise. If you can, it's difficult to do, but if you can, work with people who care about it.
Yeah.
And are in it for the right reasons, not to be a celebrity or be famous or that kind of nonsense.
The child celebrity perspective of me would very easily say that the best advice is to have something to fall back on. Education. I mean, if I hadn't gone to school and actually gone to Stanford after Whose Boss ended, I would have ended up like all the other kids. So having that other thing to fall back on is going to make a world of difference.
This kid went to Stanford, man. I can't tell you.
Thanks, Sam.
What do you guys hope that Cujo is remembered for the most?
I mean, aside from Dee Wallace's work. No, it's a great film. It's amazing how much appreciation people have for a film that we made 32 years ago. Because I feel all the pieces fell into place. The chemistry was right with all the people involved. We got the right technical people, everything from Carl Miller to the DP to the editor. Neil Travis, who was the editor. A story about Neil Travis. I inherited when I came in an editor who was already on the film. And when I started shooting and looking at the dailies every night, the dailies would look great. And then on the weekend, I would go into the editing room and look at scenes cut together, and they just didn't work. They were falling flat. And I couldn't really figure out why. And eventually I replaced the editor with Neil Travis, who came in and took everything apart, reconstructed the whole film back to its original state, and then started cutting from scratch. And he was able to produce magic when he edited these scenes together. And one other thing I just want to point out before I forget, is for any people in this room who want to be filmmakers, or are filmmakers, or aspiring to be filmmakers, I know we've got a few because they've come up to the autograph stand. There's Ian and Andrew out here from Canada who want to be filmmakers. And please read Stephen King's book called On Writing. It's his nuts and bolts experiences about writing novels and literature, but all the principles involved are directly applicable to making movies. For example, he says if you want to be a good writer, there's two things you have to do. You've got to write a lot and you've got to read a lot. And the same thing is true of movies. You've got to see a lot of movies and make a lot of movies. And in today's digital world, it's now possible for everyone to be a filmmaker. So if you have any inclination to do so, please grab your iPhone or a consumer camera, whatever you got available, and start making movies.
We're going to take one more question before we wrap up. So let's go to you right there, sir. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to wish a happy birthday to
Oh,
Teague.
absolutely.
So happy birthday.
You really kept it a secret,
Let's sing.
Oh, no, now we have to do something.
Let's sing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lewis. Happy birthday to you.
Yes, sir. Last question.
Okay, my question is, throughout this Q&A, we've established that there was a huge link between Dee and Danny. Dan, I want to know what was it from the movie that you had gotten in your first film from working with Danny?
Well, I remember when I showed up, I thought it'd be important to establish a relationship with the boy, and so when I went out, when we shot in Northern California, when I flew out, I had bought a rocket that shot pretty high. In fact, as we were setting it up, I think we were up in Mendocino at the time. As we were setting it up, there was a problem with it. And I was getting frustrated because I wanted to see the rocket go more than he did. and you know, again, he's a very easy kid to work with. He's a very nice guy. And Stanford graduate, so I'm in awe. And I attribute the fact that he got into Stanford to Cujo.
I brought the dog with me.
It was wonderful. I mean, Dee and her husband Chris Stoney, rest in peace. I remember Chris and I had to learn how to play tennis, and I'm from Jersey, and Elizabeth, I don't know how to play tennis, and so we would have lessons. Lewis insisted that we take lessons, and it helped Chris, it didn't help me. And I remember too, I would get upset because Chris would beat me every time we had to play each other. He was very good, very athletic guy. And so
may he rest in peace. I mean, he was a wonderful, wonderful guy to work with and to be around.
I told Danny yesterday that what he doesn't really know is that my father and I, my real father and I, developed a sort of thing for rockets, and we would do them every now and then after, and then that turned into our love of model airplanes, and we would build those from scratch, and my father still to this day flies them every weekend, so he has no idea, but he basically created my father's hobby, his passion. So,
And it was the rocket that got him into Stanford.
Hey guys, before we wrap up, if there's any way you guys could stand up and kind of stand together so that everyone can get a picture of the cast, that'd be great. How about a round of applause?
Right here, guys, in the middle.
Oh.
They told you that's $5, right?
Tweet and Facebook the hell out of